a lot of this started with the Khalifa review, which was a review commissioned in order to look into fintech opportunities in the UK. And all that did was to say that we should probably come up with some laws to regulate this stuff. Fine. The two big pieces that we're working on at the moment are a response to the Future Financial Services consultation and a response to CBDCs. And by we, perhaps I should go into the big reveal,
Yeah.
which is that following the Bitcoin Collective conference in Edinburgh, and have to shout out to Jim Duffy and to Jordan Walker here.
Yeah, I
and
love both
Lucy
of them.
Rose Walker, brilliant guys.
Jordan's coming down on Friday.
Is he?
Yeah.
Oh, tell him I say hi.
Yeah. Jordan's a great guy. They're both great guys.
They were fantastic.
Yeah.
So I've been doing a lot of advocacy and a lot of response to consultations, writing a lot of pieces. And then I reached out to Jordan after the conference. I wrote a piece for the Bitcoin Collective. And then Jordan got a bunch of us up to London to talk about maybe putting together a UK equivalent to the Bitcoin Policy Institute in
Which
the
is
US.
desperately needed.
We have something pretty much ready to go.
Okay.
And I think by the time this show airs, we should have a minimum viable product out there.
How do we help? How can we help? What can we do to support you?
Hopefully by having an ongoing relationship with us, which
That's
would be
done.
fantastic.
Well, that's already done. We're friends, so consider that done.
Brilliant.
But how else can we help?
Well, shall I talk through a few of our
Yeah,
initiatives?
please do.
Some of our initiatives are academic and procedural in nature. So we're splitting our work, and by our, I'm talking about the loose collective of people that have come together after initial chats with Jordan and Jim. So the committee at the moment consists of some lawyers, tax experts, environmentalists, some miners. We're in touch with the guys at Skilling Mining, who are great.
The Irish guys.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love them. And a podcast host from Canada who's a Brit. So we've got a wide variety of different skill sets, and we've split our projected activities in sort of three buckets. One is policy, one is mining environment, and one is education and next gen. So we want to try and focus on each of those three areas. We're all volunteers, none of us are taking a salary, so we're doing this in our spare time. And we're going to try and keep the running costs of the company as low as possible. And we're setting the company up as a not-for-profit, so any money the company does generate will be kept within the company to fund its activities. So taking them one by one, the policy side of things, the first pieces of work we're doing are responding to government consultations. And that's in the arena of what I was just talking about, making sure that decision makers and regulators have got good information about Bitcoin and about how it is differentiated from other centralized cryptocurrencies and why it should be considered in a different way. Secondly, on mining and environment, this kind of ties into how we might look to fund the enterprise and potentially somewhere where we might look to you for help. So like we were saying earlier, I think it's always more powerful to show someone something than to tell someone something. So we want to try and fund the company by initially setting up some geyser funding, not asking for donations as such, but we want to try and establish several different small proof of concept mines in different locations.
Are you aware of how much wind energy is curtailed here?
I had a meeting last week with someone who works on the wind farm just off Brighton, and he was talking about curtailment and how much of it he says he's sitting there and it just shut up. It's producing far too much for the grid.
It's literal millions of pounds. I'm sure I saw something before, like it's like Christmas Eve or something, and New Year's Eve was like £9 million. I was like, what the fuck? I'll buy that from you. I'll get some ASICs.
Cheap ASICs.
Do you know how much it's going to cost to operate this?
So we're doing some cost. So maybe starting at the beginning. So we're in talks at the moment with a landowner who has some hydropower on his land, and he's interested in putting some ASICs on that hydropower. So our first geyser fund is going to be, we're going to look to try and purchase 2 small ASICs and get into effectively a power sharing arrangement with him. So he can in some instances sell to the grid, or he can mine Bitcoin with hydropower.
When you say two machines as a proof of concept,
we're going to start with the 2 machines, but there's capability to build that out. Depending, if we raise enough money, we would put more machines in there. Secondly, we want to investigate proof of concepts on landfill methane, curtailment of wind and solar, and potentially socially useful uses for the waste heat generated by the machines.
But this is a commercial business.
These will
This
all be,
should be a commercial business.
the reason why we're doing this is partly because of listening to David Zell and
Yeah.
how much time he has to spend fundraising.
Yeah.
So our activities are not going to cost a huge amount of money, but they will require some time. And to the extent we want to pay fellows of the institute to write academic papers for us, we will need a source of income.
Have you spoken to Adam Wright?
Vespine?
Yeah.
Not yet, but I would love to.
Well, we can introduce you, right?
Yep.
I wonder if Iris can help with this at all.
Possibly.
You know, our new sponsor,
Iris Energy.
Yeah. So I wonder if I'll have a chat with them and see if there's any interest in that.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
I just had a look and it was £250 million of turning wind farms off last year.
250 million. 215.
Jesus.
I mean, I want to get ahead of you. I want to front run you and just set this up as a commercial enterprise.
Listen, well, we want to have...
But you know what will happen if you approach some of these people, you're going to say, can I buy that energy from you? I will, you'll just dump it. I'll buy it from you, I don't know, 10 pence on the pound, whatever. I'll give you money for it that you're dumping. They'll probably be like, really? Okay, great. Yeah, I just want to put a data center there. Yeah, fine. What's in that? Bitcoin. Oh, no.
Well, we're early days.
Yeah.
And we need to map this out properly and put it into a business plan. The intention for the small mines is twofold. One, we want to generate like I say, we don't need a huge amount of income to run the company, but we want to be able to pay fellows for their academic work. We want to host their academic work on websites, and the company will have a few thousands of running costs per year. So with the mines, if we can do two things, firstly, we can generate a small amount of income to fund our advocacy. Secondly, I want to have a number of sites in the country that we can bring politicians to. So getting towards actual lobbying. I met Lisa Cameron in Edinburgh. I love her. She's got her heart in the right place. She is focused, for those who don't know, she is the head of the all-party parliamentary group in the UK who are looking at cryptocurrency. As you would expect, Bitcoin is lumped in with all other cryptocurrencies as well. Of course. I really struggle not to be mean about this, but I remember it took me a long time to understand why all other cryptocurrencies were pointless. And that's where they are at the moment.
Yeah. Didn't they just have some event in London?
I think they did, yes.
And they were covering CBDCs there, I think in a positive light.
Well,
I think Lisa Cameron was criticised.
Interesting.
I think so.
Well, I'm not surprised that governments like CBDCs. It's a brilliant excuse for surveillance, control, and confiscation.
Yeah.
Why would a government not like that?
Yeah, I love it. It's perfect.
It's brilliant. This actually highlights one of the problems we have. It's you have to tread very carefully the line of advocacy, because a lot of what, if you take what Bitcoin is to its logical endpoint, it is effectively not something that the issuer of a government currency would like.
Yeah, but my headspace isn't in that the end game is the end of government currency. That's not my headspace.
No, I agree.
Because I'm still in a place where I see that you will have sovereign currencies that sit alongside Bitcoin as a commodity currency, and but you will still have local currencies or some currencies adopting the dollar. That will give you the difference between certain economies. It will be your fluid cash. But I think what it does is it makes central banks more responsible, and it makes governments more responsible.
Yeah,
I think it's a lens into the mistakes they've been making. And I mean, certainly in the midterm anyway, maybe a long time I'm wrong, but in the midterm.
No, I agree with you. And then, we can use existing examples to support that view. Gold exists.
Yeah.
Gold is perfectly legal for you to hold as a British citizen, and you can hold gold and use pounds.
But pounds are more liquid, easy. It's hard to use gold as a currency, like a day-to-day transactional currency. Bitcoin is, arguably not as easy as digital pounds, but it's catching up.
I think that, sorry to segue slightly away from our advocacy work, but that's an interesting point. And do you mind if I spend a couple of seconds on that?
Do it.
So
polite. It's like the politest guest. Would you mind? Of course not.
It's because I was beaten at school. So can't beat a good caning next to the cricket pitch.
Definitely the poshest guest we've ever had.
Definitely the poshest guest we've ever had.
So on payments, I think Mark Morton at Skilling Mining is interesting on this. He says a lot of the advocacy work he now does focuses on the commercial benefits. And I think that's a brilliant idea. like I said earlier, technology is adopted when it's useful. There's a reason you don't see cars with square wheels. When Bitcoin becomes obviously useful for people, it will be adopted. So one of the things I wanted to chat about was how absolutely absurd the current payment system is. So Peter, you go into Costa and you've got a bank card. You tap your bank card on the point of sale terminal, pay for your coffee, and then you leave. To you, that is a nice, simple process. Mm-hmm. What happens behind the scenes is an absolute sausage factory of different rent-seeking. So ordinarily, what you've got there is a 4-party transaction. So you have yourself as the customer, you have Costa as the merchant, and then in between the merchant and the money actually getting to the merchant, you have an acquirer. These are terms used in the payment industries. You have acquirer and an issuer, and then you have the scheme rules, which are Visa, MasterCard, Amex are the most well known. So you've left Costa quite happy with your grande latte, and then there's an obsessive sequence of messaging that is happening. So there are two things happening. There is messaging, and then there's transfer of value. So the point of sale terminal has frantically messaged your acquirer, and the acquirer has then messaged the issuer, which is the bank where let's say you use your Barclays card issued by Visa, and then the issuer frantically sends messages back to the point of sale terminal saying, actually, yes, Peter's got enough money in his account to pay for his coffee. It's okay, you can authorize that transaction. It's authorized, you leave, you've got your coffee, everything fine. Every single point and person on that chain is taking some money away from the merchant who sold you that coffee. So Visa and MasterCard's fees range between 1.5 and 3.5%, I think now. Mm-hmm. Amex's are even higher. And the acquirer gets a fee, the issuer of the card gets a fee. And the settlement, the actual money, doesn't transfer for some time later, in some cases days. And then if you contrast that with a Lightning transaction, there's 2 parties, possibly 3, because the node runner might take 1 or 2 sats. In a Lightning transaction, the money moves from you, Peter, to Costa, completely seamlessly, instantaneous, final settlement, almost for free.
Yeah, little fee taken by the miner.
Yeah, 1 or 2. I sat my Lightning node payments were one sat. I would charge.
It's obscenely cheap to do. It makes the entire process. I mean, if the Bitcoin currency was stable, it would be the best payment system in the world. Yeah. Well, it is the best payment system in the world, but like instability of currency does present issues. We can't avoid that.
That's true, but volatility is a price for being early.
Yeah, and do you know what? I was using Coin Corner this morning because somebody wanted to buy a ticket for our event, and I had to. They wanted to pay in Bitcoin, and I didn't have. I could have done it to a wallet, but I just wanted to have a proper transaction set up. Mm. So I phoned up Danny. I was like, "He sent me something up quick," so I did it all, and then bosh, it's done. They paid Bitcoin.
I've obviously got a Bolt card.
Yeah.
And
have you got a Rail Bedford Bolt card?
I haven't actually.
We've got some here. Do you want one?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll pay you for them. So.
You can have it for free.
So generous, thank you.
I'm curious, why did you need to speak to Danny for that?
Because I need the account set up. They still got to set up the KYC.
To receive payment?
No. To get an account so you can create the invoice.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So they still have to do the KYC stuff. But yeah, I mean, I could have just sent somebody my wallet, but what's happening, I'm sending them an invoice.
Yeah.
And at the time they choose to pay the invoice, then the value is the amount of sats they have to send is done at the time they go to pay. Whereas if I send them like, oh, here's an address, you need to send me this many sats.
Yeah.
It has a proper process to it.
How much time have we got left?
As long as you want.
Yeah. Well, happy days. So I think maybe to sort of wrap up slightly backtracking to the advocacy point, the third bucket that we wanted to focus on was next generation and education of like younger people. I mean, I'm slowly admitting that I'm no longer the youngest person in the room, so to speak. And
Papa Smurf just put his hand up. Danny's the youngest person in the room.
I mean, you started the conversation talking about ET. You can't be the youngest person.
No. I'll admit that. And so we we're leveraging some of what the Bitcoin Collective team did in the past, and looking to ensure that we leverage as much of the previous materials. And there's a hell of a lot of good stuff out there. The Nakamoto Institute, the Satoshi Action Fund.
Yeah.
We would look to ensure, and the Looking Glass stuff that's being done by Greg at the moment.
Have you got a name for it?
This may surprise you, but it's called Bitcoin Policy UK.
That's fucking brilliant.
I know. It took us a long time to come up with that name.
Do you have a relationship with the Bitcoin Policy Institute?
Only incidentally. So Margot has been working with our environmental team.
You should definitely talk to David Zell.